Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Royal Talens Creators Studio Live. My name is Jeff Olson. I am the Art Education Director for Royal Talens North America, and I will be your host today. Today, if you type in the comments, I love Amsterdam acrylics, you will, and well, you also have to reside in Canada, the US, but you'll become eligible to win a 48-piece set of our 20 mil Amsterdam standard acrylics. This is a great set. Gives you a whole lot of colors to explore with. Whether you love acrylics or something brand new for you, you will really enjoy this set. So make sure to type in I love Amsterdam acrylics during the live broadcast. And one lucky winner we'll announce at the end of the show. So today we're thrilled to be joined by a truly dynamic artist whose work captures the powerful tension and harmony between nature and industry. He's based in Duluth, Minnesota. He's built an impressive career that spans public sculpture, abstract painting, and most recently working in film. He has a BFA in ceramics from Northern Michigan University. He began by creating large-scale public installations, many of which can still be seen across Michigan. His pieces are part of permanent collections at institutions like the University of Michigan, the Oakwood Health System, and are held in private collections around the world. Over time, he transitioned into abstract painting. After running a gallery and helping to launch an arts co-op, he has now refocused fully on personal studio work. His art is deeply personal and often shaped by the time spent creating with his own children, a continuation of the creative spirit passed down from his artist mother and photographer father. He's represented by galleries in both Duluth and Southampton, New York, and serves as an ambassador for Royal Talens North America. And if that wasn't enough, he recently entered the world of film, contributing artwork, working behind the scenes, and even having 13 original pieces featured in the romantic comedy Mary Kiss Cam. We're so excited to have David Austin here. I was going to call you Davey. I have no idea why. David Austin here today to talk about art, community, creativity, and his exciting new chapter. Welcome to the show, David. There he
Hello.
is.
Technology, we made it work. I'm so excited.
It is
Uh,
so excited. I know it.
I had no idea I was so famous. Thanks, Jeff.
I know it. Doesn't it sound great?
You can do my intros on our videos anytime you want.
My pleasure. My pleasure. My honor having you here today. This is fantastic. I've been looking forward to this. We've got a great show, everybody. We're going to have a little conversation here. I got some questions for David. And then he shared some images of his work. So we'll click into a slideshow and David will kind of walk us through what we're looking at. And I'm excited for you to see all this. It's really exciting. And then we also have a video of David working in the studio that we're going to play at the end. This was done literally over the weekend, right? So brand new. And
Yesterday. It was
yesterday,
done
it was
yesterday.
done yesterday,
The
specifically
paint's,
for
the
today.
paint's
So
still drying.
I love it. I love it. But it'll give us, some insights and a look or a peek, if you will, into your working process, which I'm super excited about as well. So let's go ahead and kick this show off, David. Just a few questions I wanted to run by you, get to know you better, let everybody get to know you better. I mentioned in the intro this synthesis of nature and industry, this tension and harmony. How does living in Duluth shape that creative perspective for you?
Well, that's a good question. And Duluth is really a dynamic and interesting place. This is Duluth, Minnesota, not Duluth, Georgia. That's another place, by the way. I found out after I moved here. But we have industry, one of the largest uh, ports in North America, actually, one of the busiest ports, I should say, in North America. And so that is an influence. I see it right out of our house windows. I see the large Laker ships and the Salties going by, and it's really dynamic. We have a lot of different industry, but we have great nature here. We have amazing industry, arts and culture. The musical history here is phenomenal. It's just amazing. I can go 5 minutes down the road and I'm on a really great cross-country ski trail, which I adore. And my walks involve a couple blocks over on the shoreline. My son and I, he loves to go to the rock beach and we look for finds, all kinds of rocks and glass and things and bring them back and then clutter up the studio with all the stuff that someday will be something. So it's just a really dynamic area. It's not well known, and most people think of it as pretty cold. And winter is winter here, but the summers are absolutely glorious. So yeah, I'd say that was
Fantastic. I've
big.
never been. I've never been to Duluth. I've been to Minnesota, of course, Minneapolis mostly, Minneapolis, St. Paul area, but I've never been to Duluth.
Well, you keep threatening to come visit, so I'm waiting for that.
I
I
know.
haven't
One of
scraped
these
up.
days, I would love to visit your studio, maybe work with your group there. I know you run some workshops there too, right?
Yeah, so I have a lot of different workshops I had coming up this year. I've done several in the past, and it's just a real joy to share that love of the creative process. And to me, it doesn't matter if it's some professional artist or someone just starting out. The issue is the same. We want people to create. We want them to express and feel that almost meditative process that's there. It's more important than the object. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm at that point where I have to make objects to make some money, but but that getting them to click that creative process in the workshops is phenomenal.
Yeah, that's great. I love your mantra of creating without fear. I think that's a brilliant approach.
Hashtag creative outdoor.
So you started your career in ceramics, and we're going to share some examples of that. But now you're focusing on painting. What drew you to that transition, and how did those early experiences with ceramics influence your work today?
Yeah, it's some great question there. I actually started in graphic design. I worked for 10 years. I freelanced. I went to school for graphic design, and in my senior year, I flunked out of the final review. And so I was a senior and was unsure where to go. And I tried every medium that they had at that time. And the one that drew me the most, probably because of the professor, Marvin Zender was his name. He's still around. And he just drew me, the program drew me, the people that were in it. And so I went with ceramics and I was focusing on large scale sculptural pieces. But at the same time, I had a painting studio there too, and I was a terrible painter, just awful. So I think I've improved a little bit since then, I hope. Uh, but then I was building public art even before I had graduated in large scale sculptural pieces. And then there was one particular project that the weather was not cooperating, and I was stuck in the travel trailer. And I walked down to a art store and I just bought some paints and cheap canvases and I started painting again. And so it's been a few decades of doing that. I'm still sculpting. I'm still doing some pottery, it's particularly pots that are deconstructed and reconstructed are quite fascinating. So now I'm looking for that connection between the pots and the paintings and the sculpture and trying to get that intersection to happen between the three of them. And it's a struggle to get to make that connection. Somebody who does that really well is a potter out of Colorado. His name's Jeff Wenzel. If anybody wants to look him up, he's really phenomenal. Tell him I said hi. So, yeah, but he's a painter, and he studied on Peter Volkus, which is a very
Yeah,
famous.
yeah, very famous. Yeah.
Right. So it's always been fun to chat with Jeff about that.
I had a professor who was on my master's thesis committee named Patrick Seiler, who studied with Volcus,
Oh,
and
wow.
he was also a ceramic sculptor and painter, and integrated the two. Really interesting work as well.
Oh, you'll have to give me the information when we get offline here. That'd be
I
great.
will. I will. Yeah, I think you enjoy it. And the images that you shared, folks, I think are going to see the relationship as well, the ceramic and the paintings. I think there's a nice integration, great choices to kind of tell that story. Here's something I'm really interested in because I've always had this anxiety about doing public art. Now, of course, you hang your paintings up in a gallery or they go into a show somewhere and people are out there seeing them. But to me, there's a very big difference between doing public art and creating work for private collections. How does your approach or does your approach differ when you're creating something for the community versus for an individual collector?
Well, let's face it, public art is I'm sorry to say, but it's often designed by committee. So there's a lot of people that are involved. You have to build consensus. It's a political process, and there's nothing wrong with that. I can manage it. I'll do okay in that realm. But I prefer nowadays the freeing aspect of making a piece of art, and then if somebody wants it, they can get it. The corporate collections, Integrated Art Services, I think is their name, out of Madison, has done some really great work for me placing art in Essentia Health Systems. The University of Wisconsin has a lot of pieces last year that they placed. So I like that process, I think, now more than maybe the public art. But a lot of people enjoy it. They enjoy there's a lot of mechanisms going with public art. You know, it's not just you're making art, but you're juggling people and organizations and many desires. But if you can build the community ownership into the piece, that is a joy. That becomes a massive reward for the process.
Yeah, consensus building, I think you kind of nailed it right there, right? You are doing things within the context of a group and a community. And so consensus is very important. We've seen when that fails, right? We've all read those stories about controversial public sculptures.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, there's plenty of those examples.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Another question. Actually, first, congratulations on your work being included in the film and your recent foray film sounds really exciting. How did the opportunity come up, and what's it like blending visual art with the storytelling that you get in a movie?
Yeah, that's been interesting to stumble upon. You know, Minnesota has always kind of had a very strong film culture in its background for years, in addition to the music. We won't go into that because it's easily accessible online. But they started to do films here in Duluth, and they were scouting at a place where I was setting up a temporary show with probably 20 pieces big, and I work large. You'll see that and we'll talk about that later, but I tend to work really big, 8 foot, 10 foot, 12 foot pieces. They were up in the balcony as I was setting up, and they hollered down and said, "Hey, what do you think about putting your pieces into the movie?" I'm like, sure, why not, so that's how it kind of began. Is And the art director Sherry Anderson, who's a really great art director, I worked with her at that one, and I worked with her in a couple others too. And we placed art, notably in Mary Kiss Cam. There was 13 pieces. One of the pieces you're going to see today that I gave you was in the major background, and in the background of a major scene within the show, which is pretty fun. And then some of the others we've had some art placed in as well. And then we did some other internal things. My wife Kristen's done a bunch of graphic design work and temporary product kind of design work for the movies as well. The last one she worked on alone, I didn't have anything to do with it, which is it's cool. It's really fun to do. The hours are crazy. Making films are just nuts. But I enjoy it. I really enjoy it.
That's great. We had an interesting speaker a couple of years back at the Oil Painters of America who was a woman who specialized in placing artwork into film and TV. And it was really fascinating all the thought that goes into creating the sets that seem spontaneous and natural, but are completely constructed. And it was really kind of a fun process to listen to.
Yeah, and that was the interesting thing on Mary Kiss Cam. We did that set design, with working with Sherry, and so we were building false walls. We were making this high-end gallery with staged high-end gallery within this big hall, and it was very interesting to look at that, sort of pretend and make it real feel to it. There's a lot of crossover between that field and actually making paintings or sculptures. It's just a
Yeah.
bigger environment to play with, a bigger narrative.
It's interesting too, and maybe I always cue into paintings that are in movies or films.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, you're always looking at the background, sometimes at the loss of the plot, but I can't help myself. I'm a painter. What can I say?
Well, and then
Uh,
sometimes you recognize a piece and you go, "Oh, I know who that
yeah,
is."
yeah.
That's always fun too. Or
Well, I
wow,
think
that's
it's
a great piece.
yes. Well, sometimes they'll have images that look like famous paintings, but I've heard, at least this in this talk I was sharing the example of, she said that those are not the actual pieces. Obviously, they're
Yeah.
done by artists to look like them and have enough of a difference from the original so that there isn't a copyright infringement, which I thought was fascinating.
Oh yeah, we have to sign ththings when we do it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
for them to be able to use the images. They're pretty thorough on the bigger budget ones. The smaller budget, it's a different animal entirely.
yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting field, and I'm glad to see it still being thriving, I think, to a certain extent here in this area.
Yeah, what a great experience. That's awesome. My favorite question I saved to last. You mentioned about making art with your children inspires your work. Can you talk about how parenting and family life intersect with your creative process?
Well, our son, we have two kids. One's a 22-year-old, and she is well grown and on her own and professional, and um, fortunately doesn't live too far away, which is very nice. And so she and I had done some stuff in the early days, but Hugo, my 7-year-old, he spends a lot of time in the studio, and he actually has been in several of the videos. So if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see older videos where he's in there painting. And he told me the other day, he says, "We don't do those, and we need to get back to doing the videos again together." So it's part of his vernacular at this point. He's just been used to us doing videos and the social media and creating art. And it he is and there's a little story about this. So when he first started going into the real school, so to speak, they had art class, and they provide you with a little bit of paper and a little bit of materials and things. And they were so confused because he didn't do anything. He didn't want to do it. And they came to me and said, why didn't he want to do it? And suddenly figured out, I said, well, in my studio, he has his own studio space, and he has basically unlimited access to both scale and materials. And so for him to give him a slip of paper with a limited amount of little watercolor is very restricting. And I could see how, a younger 5-year-old would react that way.
That's very interesting. That is
Yeah.
very interesting, isn't it?
But he brings joy, he brings the playfulness back
Yeah,
in. He's never been restricted by us, and we fight to make sure the school system doesn't condition out of him that playful spirit.
yeah,
And this is what the workshops are about, right? Is getting adults to somehow tap back into, and in some cases, it becomes a very cathartic process for them because they start to remove the blocks, the conditioning that were placed early on by somebody, family member, a teacher even, unfortunately, or some other process that made them think that they couldn't be creative.
yeah.
But you can be creative and not making masterpieces of art. Creativity is in all aspects of our existence.
Right. It's a way of thinking and
It's a
living,
way of thinking,
I
yeah.
think. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
in science, it's in math, it's in everything. So it's just why do we deny it as kids? And it'll be really interesting to see how Hugo develops over time, having this level of freedom of creativity. I'm intrigued. It's a heck of a journey with him. I learned so much for him.
I when I was young and started my teaching career, my daughter was very young, and I used to bring her to class with me. And of course, she had access to my studio as well. And so art was a big part of her life in the beginning. But I remember explaining to her what I did, that I taught people how to draw and paint. And she used to always, well, she didn't always say it, but she said in the beginning, did they forget how? You know? It was a mystery to her that people would need to be taught how to draw
Yeah.
and paint.
That's not a bad. I like that. I might have to use that at some point.
Yeah, I don't think I'm the only one who's had that statement or quote, but she asked me that more than a couple times, and it was always enlightening, right? So it speaks volumes out of the mouths of babes.
Is she
All
still
right.
making artwork? I'm sorry. Now it's a reverse interview.
Am I there still?
Yeah, is she making art still?
She actually no, she's in social policy and politics. She just got her master's degree in international studies, and looks like she's been going to Japan next fall for her PhD. Yeah,
That's incredible. I didn't know. I
but still a
somehow
very creative person. Just like you said, creativity has many ways to express itself. Yeah,
Well, you need it in that kind of a field too. I mean, you need it in
Yeah,
every field, but yeah, that's really fascinating. All
yeah,
right,
no, proud parents, proud parents.
indeed.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the artwork that you sent. You sent some great images. I'm going to share this, everybody, so you can get a look at it here in a second. And I'm going to put it in presentation mode. There we go.
Boy,
So
here we
what are we
go.
looking at here?
So that's the view from our house, and that is a large laker, a ship coming out of the port, and that's early morning. And it was just this is part of what I was talking about, the connection with industry and nature. You can see the trees out in the front of the house there, and
Yeah,
that is Lake Superior, which is an incredible body of water. But we are very, very grateful to be living in this sort of environment and having a wonderful studio to work out of. And
that's a great view.
we get phenomenal sunrises here. And that's looking southeast that's what I see on my walk to the studio. It's a very short walk to the studio. I can actually looking at my studio out the like, across the yard right now and the pond. And that's our pond. It's about 38 feet long, and we built that last year, and we had one in Michigan. In fact, we had extensive landscaping in Michigan, and we owned a company called waterpaw.net. I guess we still do, but we do more light duty here in
Yeah,
Duluth.
yeah.
But yeah, for 27 years, we built water features, and
Oh, cool.
we love them. Um, but I like being in the studio a lot now.
What a great thing. I love building those things around my own house.
I didn't know you did. You built little water features at the house then.
Yeah, yeah, nothing to that scale, of course, but I like it. I would have more if I could, if my wife would let me.
Yeah, I understand that part. So this was a teapot series. I did a lot of these teapots. These were still when I was looking at functional wear, but trying to draw more attention or attentiveness to the process of having tea or interacting with a pot. This is where I started to look more and more at abstracting the form or investigating what a pot was. What's a covered jar? What's a teapot? What's its purpose and so forth. So this was really kind of the beginning, both in my exploration of the abstract art and the pottery connections. Those things started to develop. So I did a lot of these for a while, and they were in a lot of different shows, and they're in all collections all over the place. But you can see I really fell in love with the bright colors, which was very much an antithesis to traditional ceramics. Just prior to this, Peter, like Warren McKenzie and um, all these other guys, that were out there making very traditional pots.
Yeah, I love the forms in here, and you're right, the color and everybody keep this in your mind's eye when we look at the paintings, you'll see the relationship for sure.
Yeah. Oh, this is a big public art piece. So I think it's 38 feet long, the main section there, and 15 feet high. There's an element of water in there. There always seemed to be when I was doing these. So this is ceramic. And if you see the big sun round thing up there, that's about 4 feet in diameter to give you an idea of the scale.
Oh, okay.
And then the pillars there are about 8 feet to the left. And then there were several other elements around this. This is in a public library back in Michigan. Still up, still going.
Still going. Looks great.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. I love the form. And again, looking at this and knowing your paintings, I totally see their relationship. And here we go.
So this is two pieces. These are combined as one. They seem to work well together. Um, to give you an idea of the scale, it's 8 foot by 8 foot when they're put together like that. And these were the first two pieces I did when we moved to Duluth 3.5 years ago. So if you're familiar with Duluth, you'll see the tunnels that we drive through along the shoreline. You'll see the cityscape. The city rises up the hill over the harbor, and so you'll get those elements. So there's some abstract representational, some iconographical types of things, and then the vegetation. And you're starting to see this is a mixed media, so a lot of acrylics. some of the soft pastels, charcoal and other elements coming into play there. But really, one of my favorite pieces, really.
Well, I love this scale. Of course, it's hard to get that from looking at a computer screen, but I bet it's really impressive being in front of it. But I love all these forms too, and I see that legacy of the ceramics kind of speaking through here too. There's a real sense of dimension and depth.
And that is another 8 by 8 foot piece. That is titled The Tale of the Two-Tailed Horse, which I didn't tell you before, Jeff. But this was the big background piece during the gallery scene in Mary Kiss Cam. So that's its current claim to fame. I still have it, so if anybody wants it, please give me a call. We'll ship it to you straight away.
I love
You're,
it. Love
you're
it.
starting to see. Go ahead.
This particular forms, is there a relationship to any kind of text or font or?
Yeah, good question. So I started to investigate in the last several years the concept of language. And so a lot of times it's gibberish, but more recently I've been actually abstracting phrases or words or concepts within that and overlapping them a lot of cases. This one was strictly gibberish, but I am fascinated by how language can be interpreted over time. So right now, 50 years ago, a law, for example, can now be interpreted differently based on the context of current language, the vernacular that we use.
Mhm.
And that concept. And then if you extend that out, good God, if you extend that out thousands and thousands of years, and we're trying to figure out what they were thinking or doing, and it's mind-boggling. So yeah, that's the history behind that particular item.
Yeah, I love it. I love the really solid, hard geometric forms that you have contrasted with that kind of script that you painted over the top. It's a nice
There's
juxtaposition.
an artist named Canal Chong, I think is her name, and she works between China and then out in Finland. And a shout out to her. She does these large, large paintings, and she does a lot with the language thing worked into it.
Mhm.
If anyone ever gets a chance to look her up, she's been an inspiration, and I've enjoyed the brief chats I've had with her over the years. Really, really
Fantastic.
phenomenal artist too, doing the same sort of concept.
Yeah, we're not an island, are we? It's always great to reach out to other artists and talk about, especially when there's things that you can share in common.
It's my greatest joy of doing the shows that we've done on our YouTube channel and Instagram and other avenues, Facebook to a lesser extent. Fire Orchid. So this is
Nice.
a 3 by 3 painting. And Jeff, as you probably surmised, there's a lot of the reflex acrylics in this
Yeah, yeah.
and a little bit of metallics mixed in. I don't think I used pearlescent on this one. Um, but then carving back through it. So it's all alla prima painting for the most part. There's some rocking chair moments with my artwork that I call it that. I sit in my mom's rocking chair and I study the painting, and then I jump up and make one mark. But the initial painting of these color blocks series, and this is the video we're going to see is one of these color blocks. I have about 3 or 4 different avenues of painting that I go down. But you'll see, here's a good example though. You see almost like a water line at the bottom,
Hmm.
reflective of the top. And then you'll see the little squares that almost are reminiscent
Yeah.
of buildings. And so again, influenced by my surroundings here.
Yeah, these grids have that architectural kind of feel to them as well. Yeah, I mean, painting isn't always about adding material, right? It often is about taking away. And I see that, and I love that process that you have
I call it an archaeological dig.
there. That's perfect.
And this is a 4 foot piece. And this is fascinating because now we're doing a lot of black gesso. I did incorporate some black latex paint. Paints that have a lot of different viscosities, and then of course the Amsterdam underpainting there. You'll see um, the reflex pink one and the orange are in there, And then you've got the metallic, and then you see the peaks of that really the expert line of the ultramarine uh, acrylics
Mhm.
in there, and really phenomenal. You can see it just pops right out of there.
Yeah.
These paintings all evolved, the light quality changes, and you can speak to this better than I can. Maybe you can talk about it when we get to the video too, or whatever you want. It's your show. But it's so hard to capture those images because the
Yeah.
color just changes in every different light frequency. It's
Mhm.
fascinating, utterly fascinating.
Yeah, your position in relation to the surface, the position or direction of the light shining on it as it changes, the colors shift and move and dimension, they have a dimensionality to them that's really fascinating as well.
I've had people walk up to some of the paintings and like want to touch them, and they look from the side and they go, "Is this three-dimensional?" So you can get some amazing effects with some of those specialty paints, and they're a real joy
Yeah.
to work with.
A
Uh,
lot of my workshops with acrylic, I'm touting the benefits of working with specialty pigments and integrating them in your palette because a lot of folks really don't understand the potential of them, that they're more than just making a metallic surface. It can really add another level to your painting and bring something alive.
Well, if you bring the pearl, that pearl series too is amazing, mixed in with other things. They're using it for
Hmm.
layering and creating that interference coloring. What did you call it? A three-dimensional,
Yeah, the interference pigments are three-dimensional. That's how we categorize them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. This
Thousands of little prisms in the paint.
is it glass, micro glass, right? On the pearls? Is that what it is? Or
No, it's not. It's a mica. Often something called muscovite is used as a type of silica. So it would
oh,
be an ingredient to make glass, but it's not glass itself. And what they do is create layers of oxidation over the top of it, similar to what happens with a speck of sand in an oyster over time to create a pearl. And those layers of oxidation are what capture the light and it refracts in a way that it interferes as the different light waves interfere with each other. That's where it gets the name interference. But it literally is like painting with thousands of little light prisms.
where were you when I was struggling through my video yesterday?
I'm always here at your
I know.
disposal.
You're so busy. So this one's 80-inch by 36-inch, and
It is
that
again, right?
last
Yeah.
one just sold at the show this last weekend, and
Oh, that's
it's
fantastic.
really amazing. Yeah, I was very happy. Went to a really good home. I delivered it. It's down in Minneapolis, and you can see another piece below that. The one above is a mixed media piece, so there is some latex. There's the Amsterdam acrylics, of course, then Rembrandt soft pastels. The one below is, I believe, almost exclusively the Amsterdam product line. But you start to see some of the really beautiful pinks and contrasting colors that you get with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I like this area right here. It really jumps out where you've layered that magenta over the top of that darker area.
Oh, I love the magenta, and it is just such fun to work with. It really is. It's a base color for me to use.
Yeah. Here's
And this
another
is,
shot of your booth.
yeah, yeah. And I threw this at you because you can start to see in that back corner, you see the fire orchid piece, for example, and how in
Mhm.
this light it's different than the other picture that I took, right?
Yeah.
But you also get an idea of the scale. And the metallics in that smaller blue one down below really reflect amazingly. It changes all the time. And then that pink one above, the same thing. That pink one is just, it's incredible, the changes. And then, of course, the back piece, the mythological journey, it's called.
Mm.
That's all soft pastels, and that's
Oh,
really,
really?
yeah, that's strictly soft pastel. And I have some videos on that too on my YouTube. But it's all working on board. It's a plywood, and I highly saturate the board, and then I'm working the soft pastels into it, so it becomes very painterly. And that's been a new fascination for me. Is those Rembrandt soft pastels are so highly pigmented.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
when you get them in there and use them into a wet surface, and then if you seal them, that color just pops. It's just
Yeah.
really incredible.
Yeah, a lot of folks don't. Pastel is the most heavily pigmented material, color material that we can use. You're literally working with this pure pigment, and the colors of an artist grade like Rembrandt are just really saturated, intense color. They aren't all tinted or toned or shaded.
Yeah, that's been a new discovery. As a Royal Talens ambassador, I've had the privilege of trying some new things out that I hadn't
Yeah.
tried before, and I stumbled on using those because I was just using a little bit of them, the black, in fact, and maybe
Hmm.
a couple other colors of the orange in the mixed media pieces and the what in the, because I paint a lot in alla prima at first. I was fascinated by how the soft pastels dissolved in the other material in the paints and the water, and that led to this other series that I've been working with.
Yeah, pastels have a great history and tradition, not just in academic styles like portraiture or landscape, but also in 20th century art. Artists like Frida Kahlo, Picasso, de Kooning use pastels. Today, there are a lot of wonderful contemporary artists, from Cecily Brown to Sean Scully. A lot of folks using soft pastels still, along with oils or acrylics or whatever other materials they're working in.
Oh, I
Um,
love Cecily's stuff.
yeah.
Get Cecily around. I love that. The work is amazing. Yeah.
Well, let's take a little bit of a break here, see what kind of questions. I see there's a few lining up, and thank you everybody for joining us today. Lots of hellos and highs to you, and I think some folks from your neighborhood wanting to know. Let's see, Jill Hansen.
Okay. Hi,
Yeah,
Jill.
she's saying hello, and well, she's asking to put the names of the artists and the mention in the chat. I will do my best to add those in when we're watching the video. Thanks for asking for that. Yeah.
And yeah, that means your memory is better than mine, Jeff.
Let me see here. Get down to a question. So, where is your art displayed at the Essential Health uh, folks? So that image we saw, and maybe some of the other ones as well. Where can go folks go to see those?
Yeah, I don't know. It's their new hospital here, Essentia Health Systems in Duluth, and I actually don't know where those two paintings are. They're two 3-footers, I believe, two or three, and I have no idea. I missed the orientation where they took all the artists around. I don't know what room or what hall it's in, to be honest. Then the University of Wisconsin Health System, I have never been there. A courier came up and picked them up, and there was a 5-foot piece, and I think the rest were 4-footers that they did there. And I've never been there. University of Michigan, those are in, I believe I might be wrong. One of the library's permanent collections there, and I can't remember which library at this. That was several years ago. Oakwood, the same thing. That piece, I don't remember where that is. So, but if you want to see pieces, come to the studio. I'll show them to you all day
There you
long.
go. There you go. I love it. Somebody's asking about the surfaces you're painting on. Is it plywood, canvas, both?
Yes, everything. But I really like the 1/4 inch plywood. And the caveat is you have to find a plywood that is resistant to the moisture because if you're working, otherwise it can cup, it can curl, and even within the ones that I found, and the only place I can buy it is at Mr. DeSanto's lumberyard down the street from me. A very wonderful gentleman who has this little lumber yard, and for whatever reason, this particular brand of plywood is very resistant to the moisture, so it stays pretty flat.
Do you
The
have to
top,
cradle it at all on the back?
all of them get cradled when I most of the time I cradle them when I actually show them or sell them.
Gotcha.
But what I like about the 1/4 inch, the thin one, is I can stack a whole lot because storage is, I have a 1,000 square foot studio and it's still a problem,
Yeah.
to store. But yeah, I'll do a backing frame or they get framed by somebody like when Integrated Art Services picks them up, they go and frame them. I don't have anything to do with that. I work on canvas too, both loose and stretched. Lately, I've been having a lot of fun with rice paper and Van Gogh watercolors and layering. And I've been doing that on the board and on canvas, stretch canvas. And then I'm sealing them with a satin acrylic varnish. and the effects are phenomenal. I'm absolutely adoring the process. It's a brand new thing I've started about 2 weeks ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You are so good about just jumping into things and trying out different materials. Really an inspiration.
Thank you. Thank you. Create without fear.
One more question before we jump into the video. You had mentioned the pastel. Question's got two parts. First, do you apply anything to the surface first on the plywood? And then what do you use to seal it with?
Yeah, so no, I don't do any prep with this board at all. I don't even gesso it or anything when I do the acrylics. When I do oil on it, I do try to prep the surface when I work with the oils, the Cobra oil specifically. Although I have some Rembrandt oil too I play with. Um, when it comes to sealing the soft, can I mention another product? We don't carry
Sure.
it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
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 So, and I'm not sponsored by them. I just find it. I've been struggling to find fixatives and sealants that were a little less toxic. I have a bad asthma problem. It's been compounding as I go because I was really naughty when I was younger about material safety. And so I found, stumbled across Spectrafix products, and I know you know that. And Degas fixative, I'll fix the pastels if I'm going to build layers up, and then I'll use Final Fix over the top, and I do three, four different thin layers and build that protective layer up. It's nice because it's a continuous pump. There's no aerosols. I still wear a breather mask when I use it, and I try to do it outdoors in the studio, outside of the studio. But yeah, I know we have some really nice fixatives in the Royal Talens line too. So the main thing is with the soft pastels is you don't want to saturate it straight away. You want to be really light coverage at first, particularly. Otherwise, you're going to affect, spot it, for example. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Always test it too. I always share that with folks that a fixative over pastel is going to change the color. And for some folks, that's great. For other folks, that's not so great. So always make sure you're testing it on something that isn't your masterpiece, so you don't get disappointed with the results. And yeah, there is a technique to it. I mean, aerosols go on the most even, but they're also the most toxic. To your point, you need plenty of good ventilation or wear a respirator when you're using those. The pump spray ones are less harmful in that regard, but they can spot. They don't always go on evenly. And then, of course, there are atomizers, which are the old school way. And you can use those where you're actually using a little tool that you're blowing on. You can get a very nice mist with that, but it takes some practice. And of course, you don't want to breathe in when you're doing it. But yeah, definitely, whichever you choose, whichever you decide to go for, always test it on something before you use it on your actual artwork.
Yeah, for sure. And I've noticed two different varnishes will have some will be affect the color more than others. So it's always good to kind of play around to find. I like the fact that the soft pastels get a little bit more rich. When I do it, they get a little more dark. The pigment becomes more evident in it. And I like that effect. It's the same thing with the watercolors and the rice paper. I really build up that acrylic varnish to create almost the look of hot wax, or cold wax
Hmm.
technique. That to me is fascinating. But yeah, one thing to take away from this is don't be afraid to try something new.
Yeah,
Have fun, enjoy that process. For goodness sakes, it's a lot of fun.
for sure, for sure. Let's go ahead and take a look at the video. So you've got the control there. I'm going to kind of turn it over.
I have to make an admission right now that I thought I had enough battery on this system.
Oh no.
Hang on, I
Plug
got
in. Plug
there. We're
in.
good. We're good. It's saved. The computer was yelling at me. I thought sure I had. We're talking too much, Jeff.
It happens.
So I have to pre. Can I pre?
Absolutely. Sell it. Sell it.
So I had the art show this last week, and it was a lot of prep, and we had a lot of other stuff. And of course, I'm mostly a stay-at-home dad, so there's a lot of dad stuff going on. So we finally got to make the video yesterday evening after Kristen got home from work. and we were just silly. And I couldn't even form coherent sentences through some of it. So it's pretty hilarious. So I might stop and have you actually interpret some of at one point. The other part is I don't watch any of these videos. I can't do it. Kristen does the editing. If I upload a video, it's raw. I haven't watched it. I can't watch myself. It's just the weirdest. It's hard enough right now with the Zoom. I get distracted. I'm like, who's that? I don't want to look at that. So that's the preamble. And now let's see if I can get this started. And this is from our YouTube channel. It will be live on our YouTube channel soon tonight, I believe. And there's that. And then you said click on that. This is the first time I've done this, except with, hey, look, there it is. It
Working.
says we're screen
There you
sharing.
are.
And now we got to make it play, right?
Yep.
Go. We don't have time for this. Let's get making art. Are we making art yet? Are we making art now?
Are we making art? I guess we're making art. Yep.
All right. So we're doing a lot of work with Amsterdam acrylics. Woo! It's pretty exciting. We're gonna do some gestural drawings, and I'm not even looking. Look, I'm not looking. Not looking. Oh, that's kind of fun. So this is the under drawing, and I wear these gloves so I don't get my hands dirty, and I can answer the phone, or I can get chicken nuggets from my son. Behind the camera is my dear wife, Kristen.
Hello, everybody.
I remembered her name today. That's awesome.
I know, considering you can't remember the name for tea kettle. That's impressive.
Hey, that's revealing a bit much. So why am I doing all this? It's to loosen up before I put on the actual paint. And we're doing a series called the Color Block series because some woman I know came up with that idea, the
Well,
name.
it's not maybe the most imaginative, but it's functional.
And of course, we started this and there's already a siren in the background, but the lawnmower just stopped. This is not a live session, but you can pretend it is, everybody. And we're going to make a nice color block. I had a lot of fun at the art show this last weekend.
Yeah.
And now we're going to make some art,
Well,
I
let's
guess.
tell everybody where were you at?
Where was I at? Oh, yeah, the Minnesota Sculpture Garden show, art show.
At the Walker Art Center.
It's across from the Walker Art Center, yes. So I'm putting on some reflex. This is acrylic paint, obviously, maybe not obvious, but Amsterdam acrylic paint. And that is the reflex orange. And now we're going to do my favorite new color. And by the way, I never thought I was going to use pink, but I love pink now.
Hey, can you tell us what a reflex color is?
Well, and Jeff, that's you. Because my explanation, which we'll hear after yours, is ridiculous. Can you please?
Yeah, so reflex colors are phosphorescent colors. They're dyed pigments, and they actually reflect back more of the spectrum than you typically see with the human eye. So you get this glowing effect when you paint with these. If you were to look at it, in a controlled environment, literally these ultraviolet rays are emanated from the side and make visible for us the range of spectrum of color that normally isn't there. So they're really powerful by themselves and added to other colors. You need to, if you're going to mix them, you need to mix them with colors that are transparent. If it's opaque, it will kind of dull that effect, and you'll really just get the hue, the change in hue. But if you mix them with other transparent colors, you can maintain some of that effect as well. But yeah, they're like phosphorescent or fluorescent.
Okay, well, let's compare that to what my answer is. Oh, whoa, that's a lot of color.
That was a lot.
I don't know, but I bet you Jeff Olson could. So yeah, it's basically it's kind of like a fluorescent neon type of color. It's related. I believe it's related to interference colors, meaning it takes in light.
Let me zoom in on that. Hold on again.
Reflects. Yeah, it's about time.
Slow down a little bit there. You're
Yeah,
going
burn
too
your
fast
teeth
for
with
me.
me, will you?
Oh, the words that you say.
So this is the groundwork for the whole piece, and we're gonna probably post something with Jeff Olson, who is the education director for Royal Talents later. But this is my ground. So I'm going to be putting blue over all of this orange. And I'm just taking and so why half of this is going to be covered. Almost all of it's going to be covered, right? But why are we doing that? Well, it's like an archaeological dig. You build the layers up and then you can dig down through it and reveal those layers. And that's what's really exciting in creativity. We're going to dig down through the layers of our experiences, and we're going to use that to create some amazing artwork. Already, I kind of like it this way. Do we have to put blue over it, or can we just?
You can do whatever you want. You're the artist.
Oh,
I'm just the videographer.
videographer. Videographer. So I got something caught on there. I don't know what it is, but there it is right there. You never know in the studio.
I love working with those big spackle knives, those drywall knives. I have one exactly like that. It was at an 8-inch or a 6-inch. I can't tell for sure,
I
but
think that one's the 8, the big
yeah,
one.
yeah, they are really fun. I will use those often in the beginning, just like you're doing it, to spread the paint around, and it creates some really wonderful effects and marks.
Yeah, I one of the reasons I started using palette blades is because I'm absolutely notorious for destroying brushes. I forget that I have paint on them, leave them, and I get furious because it's a $40 brush or something, and so out of necessity, when I ran out of brushes, I had to start using palette knives. Oh, by the way, one of the influences I have is what's his name? The fellow that died a few years ago. He was in Germany. He did the giant palette knives, the big palette
You
knives.
heard Richter?
Yeah, Richter. Yeah,
I think
that's
he still might be alive, but I'm not sure.
well, big influence for me, and I always forget his name. Let this dry and then paint over it. Other times, like today, because we're a little pressed on time, we're just going to put the blue on the top of this. I'll put this over here for later. There you go. Now we're going to get the blue set up.
I'm trying to avoid tetanus over here.
What do you got? Oh, there's rusty metal for sculptures back in the back.
Yeah, I just realized.
Yeah, you're welcome. Or I'm sorry, I don't know which. So ultramarine for my blues is one of my favorite. The Amsterdam has some really fantastic pigmentation. A lot of heavy pigments in it. If you can get it out of the bottle to start with, there we go.
Like a ketchup bottle. You guys just.
Yeah.
But unlike ketchup, this is not going to go bad.
No, it's going to just get better with age. So it's getting down to the end, and what I do is I add a little water and thin this out.
But not too much water.
Not too much water, and a medium, acrylic medium. And that will, let's just get crazy. Because what's the thing we say?
Create without fear every day.
Without fear. Even our 7-year-old says that now,
Yes,
right?
he does.
That's awesome.
I had a little of this, what is this? This is the phthalo green.
Jeff, are you starting to see why I ask for a lot of acrylic paint lately?
Yes. I love to see that though. I'm always telling people, don't be shy. Throw some paint out there.
Yeah. If you want to skip ahead at any point, let me know. I know we got some time limits, but
We got another 10 minutes, so yeah, if you want to skip ahead, go for it. But we got a little time.
He's like, he's not here right now.
I got to see what you're going to do with all that blue.
You're right.
Jeff. No, that's the SNL thing. Dave's not here.
Man shark.
Land shark. Because we can't do an art show without some reference to a movie. Like what's the thing with the ants?
Ants?
Yeah.
No, it's literally called ants.
Oh,
Or are you talking about Bug's Life?
No, I'm talking about what's his name? The fashion guy.
What are you talking about?
You're gonna get it in a minute. You're gonna figure it out in a second. Come on, you can do it.
The Arthur movie?
The art school for ants.
Oh, Zoolander.
Ah, there you go.
Ah.
She got it.
in my defense, I work with young people who don't get any of my references, so I stopped digging into the vault.
Okay, so if you want to see the rest of some of this, you can let's skip ahead because I know we've got, so you can start to see the palette knife build up here. Let's just go here.
Oh, there we go.
And
Got to show us how you got to there. There we go.
these pieces often end up being kind of cityscape oriented or landscape oriented.
Versus what, a still nude?
I'll edit that out later. Jeez, well. Yeah, it's look how luscious that is.
It is really creamy.
It looks really, really good.
It's interesting for me going from a place of brittle glass, sharp, unforgiving
Yeah.
glass back into the painting studio.
Yeah, it's you haven't been around as much as normal, but we always love it when you're here. And I don't know who the we is. Maybe it's
I'm
our son.
sure somebody cares that I'm here besides you.
It's our son.
Yes.
No, we're enjoying her
Mentioned that
her monologue over the top. I love it.
yeah, you know, that's
Play by play.
when I've tried to do the shows on my own. What's that?
It's like play by play. Yeah.
Are you there? Yeah, exactly. And that's that banter is what makes it work for us.
Yeah.
I'm going to skip ahead again. Again, if anybody wants to watch the full video and hear our little banter back and forth, because it's pretty hilarious, I think. You can get it on my YouTube. Let's see what this is. Oh yeah, now we're getting some craziness.
So this is again, so this is the white, titanium white, and there's a little bit of, so I get down to the end of these bottles, I add a little water, and then I add a little medium. In this case, it's a satin medium, and it extends what I can use. But the differences in the, what do you call it, the viscosity creates a very interesting crackle effect. So we can start to get some oil spotting, kind of like this is ceramic terminology, right? Oil spotting, hair's fur. We can get all that kind of really cool effects and some crackle effects. And now I'm going to use, this is the phthalo blue. I'm going to use this. It's the.
We're going to skip and find where I actually pull that stuff into it.
Blur.
There we go.
There we go.
Ooh, like the band.
Wait, there's a band.
Yeah, from the 1990s. You're too old for that reference.
Hey,
Cool. So cool.
I resemble. Oh, look at that. Come on. Oh my gosh, it's a lot of stuff on it. Get off of there. Sometimes I have other.
Do you work that paint back into the
stuck in
surface usually, or do you save it somewhere else?
Oh, wait, you're talking about band.
Usually I work it in either on painting or into a new surface. Yeah.
Okay,
Inevitably I have
that's-
excess paint. So it gets worked in.
So you
But
see,
But you can start to see some of that oil spotting, that hairspur type of things happening.
Yeah.
So let's see if we'll watch here.
and I'll make some different marks. You'll see some pictures of that at some point if you follow us along.
And that
Ah,
gold,
that's beautiful.
the gold is that Amsterdam acrylic inks. And it's a quick, easy way for me to
Yeah.
get that effect in there. And it goes a long way too. So
Yeah, the inks are great. They're like a hyper pigmented acrylic paint, super fluid acrylic paint.
A little different.
Try to lay it over
I'm
this
gonna get to
again.
the scribe part. There we go. That's the big one. That's the big part. We're gonna
Going
watch
through
that
the
again.
layers. I'll lay that paint back down here. Look at that. That's pretty hot.
There's that
And then
scratching
let's
out. I
take
love it.
and do. All right, you ready? This is the scary part. The swipe is always the scary part. There's the swipe.
Zoom in on that so you can see in clarity what just
Yeah.
happened here.
So we're digging down through the layers. Now, all of this different viscosity of the acrylic inks, you're not going to see it maybe yet, but we'll post this later. You're going to get the oil spotting, the hair spur effects. All of these really neat effects are going to happen. And you're using the neons, the pearlescent colors. All of these things are going to interact to create a really powerful piece that will almost, it appears three-dimensional when you look at it.
Yeah.
It's really, yeah, and it changes in light. The light quality changes, the piece changes. You're then living with a narrative piece that evolves over time. So this has been a lot of fun.
So there's a little bit of ending there, but I think that's good enough.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, and
It's
I'll
always
post
great to see
pictures.
somebody's process. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll post some pictures on the social media of that piece when it dries, but it still was pretty wet this afternoon, so I couldn't even pick it up to go take a picture.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a great question from Jody. Hey, Jody, how's it going? She asks you, do you get to a point where you see something you identify with and start enhancing bits of that image, or do you just put it all and get what you get?
But yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that exactly. Say that again. I'm not sure.
So, I mean, my interpretation of the question, and Jody, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So, when you're going through this kind of automatic process, you're creating, if you see something that you identify with or like, do you work to enhance bits of that? Do you play off that? Or do you just pull it all in and what happens, happens?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's an improvisational aspect to all the artwork I make, without a doubt. It's like a jazz musical improv. But there are times when something happens and you just have to step back and go, wow, that was really great, or oh my gosh, that's terrible, and you have to correct it right then and there. Generally, whether regardless of which series I'm working on, there's an initial burst of energy, initial process, and then there's a pause, and then it becomes the rocking chair moment, as I mentioned it later. And several pieces reside around the studio, and I will catch them. I'll sneak up on them, and maybe enhance, like you say, enhance a part of it using the markers or the different soft pastels or pencils or whatever it is. So yeah, I may like something in a painting, but it's not quite right in that process of allowing the gestation to happen, to open the mind up and to be ready to see a new answer, if you will. I don't know if that remotely answers the question.
No, it makes sense. It's a process of discovery, right? You're creating a place where art can happen, and then you're identifying the things that are working or not working as you're moving along. And I know for me, it's a similar process. As I get farther along in the painting, I'm focusing in more and more on very specific elements, where in the beginning it's much broader strokes, if you will. Um, yeah, so I think that sounds right. And Jody says she asked it again, and I think you answered that is if you see something interesting in the image, do you build on it or is it all chance? And I think you answered that.
Yeah, yeah, it's a bit of both for sure. Yeah, some of the pieces that are more figurative or abstract representational, there's more deliberate action, and we didn't show any of that. But I have a series that are dealing with ruins, and so there's very deliberate. I want them to be identifiable as ruins, so I'll do a lot of charcoal or burnt sienna, soft pastels, and build up these layers that are clearly arches and old buildings and so forth. And that's to create a certain kind of narrative, and that's incorporated within an abstract environment. So the narrative for me is very important, and I will work towards a narrative, but sometimes the narrative is revealed. The color block series is pretty straightforward. It's an acrylic process. I don't bring in a lot of other paints into it or other things, sometimes a little bit of it, but some of the other mixed media pieces, those can build on some pretty powerful narratives. Well, that's a whole nother show, another time.
Yeah, yeah. No, the painting process, for me, when it's most exciting is when it's about discovery, not being pre-planned, but something that reveals itself based on the interaction with the artist, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's the joy. I mean, that discovery, that revelation. It's like when you teach, and I know you know this too, because you teach quite a bit. And when that student or the person in the workshop that you're mentoring and you're guiding, because it's more of a guiding them, when they get that aha moment, and it didn't matter whether I was teaching cross-country skiing or the martial arts or the ceramics or the painting, when that comes and they get it and it's a phenomenal experience to
Yeah. Yeah.
witness.
I
And I learned
quoted this a couple times over the last month or so. It's the quote by Robert Henry. Are you familiar with Robert Henry?
I don't think so.
He wrote there's a great book of his called The Art Spirit. It's a classic book for artists. You have to check it out. He was a famous painter and educator in the early part of the 20th century in New York. And I'm probably going to butcher this quote a little bit, but he talks about it as not working to create great art, but to create a space where great art can happen. And
Oh, good.
I think it's a wonderful quote. You'll have to look it up. Robert Henry, The Art Spirit. And there are other books that he's contributed to as well. He was part of the Ashcan School of Painters in the early 20th century, and some wonderful portraits he did of New York society that are in museums all over the country.
I
But
must have seen his work, and I've heard that quote before too, so I must know at least something.
yeah, yeah, I'm sure you do. He's got a lot of great ones. Gems, gems. The Art Spirit is his book, and it's a good book no matter what type of art you make or where you are in your career.
That's a good one to look up. Well, we had a lot of good people to look up. Every time you and I
Absolutely.
chat, even off of screen, I leave with a wealth of knowledge, and I always appreciate that.
Oh, my pleasure. I enjoy geeking out on art materials and art history.
Oh, for sure. I wish I could remember more of it. I do not have the brain like my dear wife, who remembers pretty much everything.
Mine is
She's,
slipping, I think.
well, I
I'm
think
turning
you've crammed too
60
much
this
in.
year. Things are getting a little grainy in place.
Yeah, well, I don't know what to tell you other than I'm with you.
Last question, David, before we go, and thank you everybody for your comments and questions. Lots of great feedback there. Where can we go to see more of your work? You mentioned a YouTube channel, websites, any events happening. Where can we go see more?
Yeah, thanks for that. Well, there's davidaustingallery.com is the website, and you can link to, I believe, most of the social media. But I am on Blue Sky. Instagram's a pretty big account. It's David underscore K underscore Austin. Not to be confused with David Austin Roses. That's a whole nother genre of career. Somebody else. And then the YouTube is, I believe, that's at Paint With Me. Is I believe the handle for the YouTube. But if you look up my name, you'll probably stumble on me
I
somewhere.
typed in the website address into the comments for folks, so click on that for sure.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that, Jeff.
You bet. You bet. All right. Well, let's wrap this up. I got some paint to give away,
Ooh.
and my magic spinner has selected Jody Epp. Jody, you are the winner of the acrylic. Longtime watcher of Creator Studio Live. Great to have you here always, and congratulations on winning the acrylic. So you probably still got my email. So send me an email, and I will get you hooked up with the acrylics. And thank you everybody for joining us today. And as always, this video is going to live in perpetuity on YouTube at the Royal Talens YouTube station. So make sure if there's a part of it that you didn't see or your friends missed it, let them know that they can still watch it. And David, you said the full demo with audio will be available on your YouTube. So lots of places to go back and enjoy some of the great information and images and artwork that David shared with us today. Thank you so much, David, and thank you everybody for being here.
Thank you. I really